If silence makes you uncomfortable, this will change how you see power. The strongest people in the room are rarely the loudest ones. They don't explain, they don't react, they wait. And that silence does more damage than words ever could. Silence is often misunderstood because most people only experience it when something has gone wrong. They remember moments where they stayed quiet out of fear, confusion, or emotional overload, and they assume all silence comes from the same place. But conscious silence is different. Conscious silence is chosen, not forced. It is not the result of being shut down. It is the result of being shut down. It is the result of being settled. When someone stays silent by choice, their nervous system is regulated. Their thoughts are clear, and their sense of self is intact. They are not retreating from the moment. They are controlling it. Most people react because reaction feels like relief. Speaking releases tension. Explaining feels like protection. Defending feels like safety. But those reactions come from emotional urgency, not strength. When a person reacts immediately, they're trying to manage discomfort rather than influence outcomes. Silence interrupts that cycle. It slows the moment down. It removes the emotional fuel that keeps conflict alive. It forces the other person to sit with their own words, their own tone, their own intent. A person who stays silent is signaling something powerful without saying a word. They are signaling that they are not emotionally dependent on being understood right now. They are signaling that they do not need approval, agreement, or validation to remain steady. This creates an imbalance because most interactions are driven by emotional exchange. When one person stops feeding that exchange, the dynamic changes instantly. The person who expected a reaction now feels exposed. They start to question themselves. They begin filling the silence with assumptions, second thoughts, or over-explanations. Silence also protects internal authority. When people speak too quickly, they often say things they don't fully mean, reveal emotions they haven't processed, or commit to positions they later regret. Silence gives space for alignment. It allows thoughts to organize instead of collide. It gives emotions time to settle, so words, when they do come, are intentional rather than impulsive. This is why silence often precedes the most impactful statements. The pause sharpens the message. Conscious silence is not passive, it is active restraint. It is the decision to not give access to your inner world until it is earned or necessary. This is especially powerful in moments of provocation. When someone tries to pull a reaction out of you, they are attempting to control the interaction. Silence denies them that control. It says, without aggression, you don't get to decide how I respond. That alone rebalances power. People who master silence understand timing. They know that not every thought deserves immediate expression. They know that words lose value when they are overused. In a world where everyone explains themselves constantly, the person who speaks less is perceived as more deliberate, more confident, more self-assured. Their words carry weight because they are not scattered. Silence becomes a filter that refines communication rather than suppresses it. There is also a deep psychological effect silence has on observers. Humans are wired to seek feedback. When feedback is removed, the mind fills the gap. Silence creates ambiguity, and ambiguity commands attention. People lean in, they wonder, they project meaning. This is why calm, quiet individuals often seem mysterious or intimidating without trying. Their silence invites interpretation, and that interpretation often elevates them. Silence is also a boundary. It marks where your emotional responsibility ends and another person's begins. When someone is upset, manipulative, or reactive, silence refuses to absorb their chaos. It doesn't argue with it, justify against it, or mirror it. It lets the emotion stay where it belongs. Over time, people learn that emotional dumping doesn't work on someone who stays silent. They either adjust their behavior or remove themselves. Many people fear silence because they associate it with loss of connection, but real connection doesn't require constant noise. In fact, the strongest connections can tolerate quiet. Conscious silence doesn't disconnect. It clarifies. It shows who respects you without explanations, who listens without forcing you to perform, and who becomes uncomfortable when they can't control the narrative. Silence also builds self-trust. Each time you choose not to react, you reinforce the belief that you can handle discomfort without outsourcing it through words. You prove to yourself that you don't need to convince, persuade, or defend to remain whole. That internal stability becomes visible. Others sense it, they may not understand why, but they feel it. In high-pressure moments, silence acts as a stabilizer. While others escalate, the silent person remains grounded. This contrast amplifies their presence. Calm stands out in chaos. Stillness stands out in noise. Over time, people begin to associate that person with clarity and strength, not because they dominate conversations, but because they don't lose themselves in them. Silence also prevents unnecessary damage. Words spoken in emotion can't be taken back. Silence avoids escalation, preserves dignity, and keeps options open. It allows you to respond later with precision rather than regret. This is not avoidance, it is strategy. The most important distinction is this: silence is not about withholding to punish others, that is passive aggression. Conscious silence is about self-regulation. It is inward-facing, not manipulative. The goal is not to make others uncomfortable, but to stay aligned with yourself. Any external impact is a byproduct, not the objective. People who stay silent by choice are not trying to win every moment. They are playing a longer game. They understand that respect is built through consistency, not arguments. They know that power is quiet because it doesn't need to announce itself. They trust that when they do speak, the moment will be right. The message will be clean, and the words will land exactly where they are meant to. People who stay silent understand something subtle but critical about human behavior. Perception is often more powerful than reality. Most people focus on what they feel in the moment. Silent people focus on how moments are interpreted over time. They know that every reaction shapes how others see them, and once an image is formed, it's difficult to undo. Silence gives them control over that image. It allows them to decide when, how, and if they are seen. When someone reacts quickly, they surrender timing. Timing is leverage. The person who speaks first often reveals their emotional position. They show what matters to them, what triggered them, and where they feel exposed. Silence withholds that information. It keeps your inner state private. In psychology, information asymmetry creates power. The less people know about your emotional reactions, the harder it is for them to manipulate, provoke, or predict you. Silent people are often assumed to be passive, but in reality, they are highly observant. While others are busy reacting, they are gathering data. They notice tone shifts, inconsistencies, body language, and patterns in behavior. Silence sharpens awareness because it removes the distraction of performance. When you're not trying to be heard, you can actually hear. When you're not defending yourself, you can see intentions clearly. Control over perception also means control over narrative. When you explain yourself too much, you hand people the story. You tell them what to think, what to focus on, and how to frame you. Silence leaves the narrative unfinished. It forces others to interpret your actions instead of your excuses. Often, actions speak more convincingly than explanations ever could. Silent people let consistency do the talking. There is also a psychological discomfort that silence creates in others. Humans are uncomfortable with uncertainty. When someone doesn't respond the way they expect, it disrupts their mental script. This disruption shifts power. The person who expected reassurance, apology, or emotional engagement now feels off balance. They may start talking more, revealing more than they intended. In that moment, silence becomes leverage without force. People who stay silent also control emotional pacing. They don't allow others to rush their feelings or decisions. They understand that emotional pressure is a tactic, whether intentional or not. Silence slows things down. It breaks urgency. It prevents snap judgments and emotional commitments. This pacing protects long-term outcomes, especially in conflict, relationships, and negotiations. Another overlooked aspect of silence is credibility. When someone speaks constantly, their words lose weight. When someone speaks selectively, their words gain authority. Silent people are often perceived as thoughtful, composed, and confident, even if they never claim those traits. The restraint suggests depth. Their pauses suggest consideration. Over time, people begin to listen more closely when they finally speak. Silence also shifts responsibility. In many interactions, one person ends up doing the emotional labor explaining, soothing, fixing, clarifying. Silent people refuse to carry that load unnecessarily. They don't rescue conversations from discomfort. They allow others to sit with unresolved tension. This teaches people how to treat them. Either the other person rises to a higher level of communication, or the relationship reveals its limits. Staying silent also prevents emotional leakage. When emotions are shared prematurely, they can be used against you later. Silent people protect their inner world until trust is proven. This doesn't mean they are closed off. It means they are discerning. They understand that access is earned, not automatic. This selectivity builds respect because it signals self-worth. There is a strategic patience in silence. Silent people don't rush outcomes. They allow situations to unfold naturally. This patience often reveals truth. People eventually show who they are when they are not interrupted, corrected, or managed. Silence gives space for patterns to emerge. Once patterns are visible, decisions become easier and cleaner. Silence also removes the need for approval. When you don't constantly seek validation through words, you detach from other people's reactions. You stop adjusting yourself to be liked, understood, or accepted in the moment. This emotional independence is felt immediately. Others sense when someone is not performing for them. That presence is grounding and often intimidating because it can't be influenced easily. Control of perception doesn't mean manipulation. It means self-respect. Silent people are not trying to confuse others. They are simply not over-explaining themselves. They trust that the right people will understand without being convinced. They accept that being misunderstood by the wrong people is not a threat. In social dynamics, silence often becomes a mirror. People project their insecurities, assumptions, and intentions onto it. The silent person doesn't chase corrections, they let reality correct itself over time. This creates a natural filter. Those who value depth and maturity stay. Those who need constant reassurance or control fall away. Ultimately, silence gives people who practice it mastery over their emotional presence. They decide when to engage, when to observe, and when to step back. They are not pulled into every reaction, every argument, every explanation. That restraint compounds. Over time, others experience them as grounded, stable, and hard to shake. Not because they dominate conversations, but because they dominate themselves.